All right. So good evening, everybody. This is the virtual design jam for the Massachusetts Seal and Motto. Um, my name is Jean-Luc Purit. I am president of the North American Indian Center of Boston. And very happy to have all of you here. Tonight, we're going to go through a few resources, some background about the change to the seal and motto, how you can get active in terms of designing your own ideas for the new seal and motto. We'll go through the submission process because right now we're doing this on Sunday, June 15th, 2025, and the deadline for submitting seal and motto ideas are going to be is on June 18th. So there's that. Um Also what we want to do, because this is part of the broader Massachusetts Indigenous legislative agenda, we want to make sure that people understand number one, the agenda itself. We have a slate of five bills. And one of those bills, the bill to ban native mascots here within the Commonwealth, will be heard this week in the State House. So we're gonna go through what you can do to sign up for that hearing, or alternatively send in your written testimony, and that's either online or in person. So lots of different things that we're going to cover tonight. Um, but I'm gonna stop the screen share here, and I'm gonna pin my video so that that's what gets recorded. I'm not sure if that's. I'm also going to. I see that we have a few folks here. I especially wanted to uh, bring give some time to David Detmold, who has been leading the charge in terms of the town to town strategy of changing the seal and motto, and also curating a lot of background on change the MA. I'm sorry. I'll let you do I'll let you do the URL, David. But would you mind if you share a few words with us
No,
before we kick off? I'd love
happy
to.
to happy to do so, Jean-Luc. Thank you for inviting us, and I hope this recording does get around to more people. It's been a busy weekend, to say the least, um, and a busy period of time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're coming through clear.
Okay. And as probably everyone here knows, this has been an effort led by Indigenous advocates for changing the mass flag and seal for 5 decades at least that we know of, and it's been in front of the Massachusetts legislature for 40 years. So this is not something brand new. This is something that is we've been pushing for, that people have been pushing for decades. And although there is a lot happening right now in the world at large in the country, this should not be overlooked, that there's a historic change that is just about to come to fruition
Mm,
thanks to the hard work of people like Patricia O'Connor, who's joining us here from Oakham, which was one of the very few towns that voted down a proposal to change the flag and seal, but not without extensive work done in that town and a really good conversation. We brought it before 91 cities and towns um, in the last 6 years, and we won the vote to change the flag and seal in 82 of those towns. And by no means did we choose only liberal communities, as
Mm.
Patricia could testify, and Maureen Doyle could also testify from Southbridge, where we wound up in a tie
Hi.
a tie vote. Um, so these were conservative heartland towns in the middle of Nipmuc territory in Worcester County, and we won 82 out of those 91. And I think that had something to do, maybe a good deal to do, with pushing the legislature forward on this. And we should note many of the legislative heroes, including Joe Comerford, who's also the lead sponsor on the bill to ban native mascots in our public schools, which is part of the topic of our discussion tonight. So, long story short, it's been at least 40 years in coming, and we are down to the last 3 days between now and Wednesday to encourage our public school students, our creative artists, and our and everybody to make a submission. Um, in Minnesota, when they changed their state flag, um, last year. They received over 5,000 submissions. The last we heard in Massachusetts, they had counted over 500. So again, this is a busy, busy period of time for organizers and activists. But if you have the ability between now and Wednesday to encourage a few more people to submit, that shows the breadth of public support. You can find materials on the Change the Mass Flag website, changethemassflag.com. Um, and happy to answer any questions as we go along tonight. But let's just say there's an advisory commission in place. It's a 10-member advisory commission. Four of those are Indigenous leaders from Massachusetts serving on that 10-member body, and they have strong allies within the other 10 members. There have been problems with the commission, but basically they are pushing forward to get this done by this time next year. Um, there will be hearings held throughout the state, and in Worcester County, they pushed hard to have a fourth hearing scheduled, and they succeeded. So in the fall, you're going to be able to testify in person about why you believe holding a sword over the head of a native caricature with a Latin motto, peace under the sword, is a horrible symbol for our state, and we need to change it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I'm gonna go ahead and
Mhm.
unpin your unpin your video here. I'm actually gonna go and now that I have a few of those URLs here. We're going to scan through Firefox because one of the things that I wanted to call attention to, of course, as David was saying, change the mass flag is where you can find a lot of the background information in terms of this 50-year plus campaign to change the seal and motto. Um, and I came into this work uh, even prior to when I started with North American Indian Center of Boston. It was actually I was introduced to the issue itself back 2014 when I started being a regular at the brunch table of former State Representative Mel King. And I got to know former State Representative Byron Rushing and his wife Frida Garcia,
Mhm.
and talking about how what exactly this meant for Native politics here in Massachusetts. And so for many of us, we're very, we're kind of steeped in decoding this imagery. But just for folks that are kind of still coming around to this issue, because I will say that on on the hearing for Indigenous Peoples Day, goodness, I forget which representative it was, but one of the representatives kept on bringing up the idea of like, well, if we get rid of the native person on the seal, what does that mean about honoring folks? And we want to be very clear, and this is, something that, when I going back to conversations with Representative Byron Rushing, the research that's here on Change the Mass Flag, really kind of breaking down like this native figure is a composite. This is no such person existed in this complete form. What happened was that there was the head of the face of Thomas Littleshell, who is from the Turtle Mountain Chippewa. He was identified as like, okay, this is somebody that looks native enough. Then the proportions of the figure actually come from a skeleton that was excavated around that same time. So they found the proportions of a Massachusetts person. And the sash itself is designed after the sash of Poe Metacomet, who are, or commonly known as King Philip, who led a war of resistance on what we now call in what we now call Massachusetts. Um, and as you can see, the figures has a arrow that's pointed down. Not getting too far away from Philip or Poe Metacomet, the violence that happened to him after he was killed, they actually dismembered him. Parts of him were on display at the gates of Boston. His head was on a pike just outside of what we now call Plymouth, and stayed there for 25 years. So even the way that this figure is constructed is very resonant with the colonial violence that has happened here. Let alone we get to the disembodied arm of Miles Standish, um, hanging above the head. And in Latin, there is the motto itself, which translates to seeking, we seek peace by the sword, but peace under liberty. So as it says here in the caption. Um, so there's many different things, and this is something that we immediately identify as something that is on the state flag because, of course, we have the white background and then we have the seal itself. But there are three things independently that the Seal and Motto Commission are actually looking for. And here is the page on mass.gov. So mass.gov/orgs, Massachusetts dash seal dash flag dash and Motto Advisory Commission. I'm just going to skip over the dashes. But we have the listing of the commission members here. Secretary Patrick Tutwiler, Kate Fox, Jim Peters, who is his executive director of the Commission on Indian Affairs, Lilia Metakechi, Summer Conforto, Brian Boyles, Elizabeth Solomon, who is selected by the executive director of Commission of Indian Affairs, but who is an elder of the Massachusetts tribe of Ponkapog. Rhonda Anderson is one of our commissioners. She represents the Western Mass portion of the Commission on Indian Affairs. So we definitely have folks that are representative of local tribes that are on the commission, and also dealing directly with local tribes. And this is kind of this goes along with the design of the original special commission that was passed in 2021. We wanted to make sure that indigenous peoples, especially, were included in in this revision process. We also wanted to recognize that not just not all indigenous peoples, but very specifically people that are from local tribes or representative of local tribes. Um, so just scrolling up here, we have the submission form. It says submit your ideas. And of course, it has the date, June 18th, 2025. So this is where you would go. This is the form that you would use once we go through this sort of ideation process. You're gonna fill out your name, email, phone number, city, town, and then again, I want to make sure that people understand there are three things that are called for. One that is seal, one that is the motto, and then the flag itself. So we could feasibly have a flag that does not depict the seal and the motto. The flag could be anything. The flag is independent. As it is right now, practice, the seal and motto are centered on the flag. So there's three things that we're calling for. So you can actually have your text here that would help describe what it is. And then, if you have any design ideas, if you have like, and this is something that, I can go through a couple of tools that you can use in terms of like designing something. But, if you have a sketch, if you have like just a, a Word document that describes what your idea is, this is something that is open for everybody. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that you don't have to be a graphic designer to be able to submit your own ideas. And while Indigenous peoples are very much a part of the commission process, we want to make sure that people understand that this is a everybody issue. We want to make sure that people understand that this is something that um, is representative of the future that we all want to build together, versus thinking about that colonial violence. What are the symbols that we could go for? So, kind of thinking about that, then going into what are some resources that we can start thinking about, what has already been adopted for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? What are some symbols that we could perhaps start pulling from, or think about things that maybe aren't recognized that could be in conversation to these things? Go to this URL on the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website called uh, Citizen Information Service Concise Facts. So here you have all of their version of the description of what is on the seal and motto. So you can have all of this background information here from the Secretary of the Commonwealth side of the description. Um, and the reason why, for the people that don't know about the process, the Secretary of the Commonwealth is the person who's charged with curating the seal and motto, and the state flag. So this is the main office that we deal with outside of the legislature. Um, so also on this page, once we scroll down, we go through, there's flora and fauna. So the Mayflower is the state flower. The elm tree is the state tree. The chickadee is our state bird. And on down. Even we can have imagine, a flag that has the Boston Terrier on it, as the state dog. I mean, it could be something like that. I mean, these are things that, are officially recognized. Um, Turkeys, cats, dinosaurs, berries, beverages, all of these things that are officially recognized as like this is something of the state. So we can start there. Not Plymouth Rock. I don't think we want to I don't think we want to uplift that. But but we can even, but we can think about what are these things that we want to kind of include in some of these design ideas, and like how can we have symbols and colors that are in conversation with all of these different elements. I want to pause right there for any questions or comments. I see I see especially like um, Alan, in your background, I see that you have a lot of flags there, so I'm pretty sure you have a lot of thoughts about vexillology and things like that. So we want to open it up for questions and comments. A lot of stuff that was covered in terms of like how we submit the ideas. But yeah, I'll give you some time to join the conversation. And this is for anybody, so if you want to just come off mute.
Seeing as no one else wants to have a first go, I'll just say that I've got a secondary role in all of this that I've actually put into the help desk of whoever's organising it to
Mm,
try and be the agent to move on everybody's suggestions. So I'll be hoping to take an official role in that, but the state has not gotten back to me properly. So I'm sure they'll want to use NAVA, North American Vexillological Association, and I'm usually part of their core team of designers on their flag design committee. So we and a number of others get quite involved in doing the back end of taking these submissions. So I'll take a back seat. I don't have a submission because all this came through for changing the seal more so
mhm,
than anything, changing the motto. So most things it tears down to which thing you change first is the fundamental. Unfortunately, Massachusetts has got the first crux point is three state colours: cranberry as a red, green and blue. You see the blue and the gold on a white flag very much more prominently than anything else. And so what you have is a predominance of colour more
mhm,
so than what you can utilise. So it'll be very interesting to see what the public come back with. But I've got my own ideas, and we've submitted a number of things already for those sorts of things. The only thing I'm short of is actually making us a seal more so in keeping with the whole intent, and that will be my preferred thing is to actually move the North American Indian First National person to be a lady and to be on the left hand side,
Ooh.
as you see it here, outside of the coat of arms. The coat of arms would become a two-person thing, just like New York and New Jersey and Maine and so many others, and have two supporters to the shield, which would be typically a pine tree. But of course, the next thing is Massachusetts state tree is the elm tree. We have this liberty tree of history that the
Mhm.
British, unfortunately, I must admit I am British, and when we're working with an international basis on this and so many things, that the British came and chopped down your elm tree where the founding fathers were actually meeting. So we weren't, intent on them carrying on there. We wanted to maintain the colonies and stop all the insurrection, but of course you went for it, and of course what happened.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've been in the state and out of the state to do various things, but of course they don't necessarily want to talk to me because I'm not national, so I haven't got so
Mhm.
much standing. Which David, I'd like, I take my hat off to David, how much work he's put in. It's absolutely fantastic to
Really?
get, the efforts to go this far and to
Mm.
get all these council people working on state reps and things, working along the lines. We followed it all the way through the last 5 years of all, and now we're finally there. But
Hmm.
what do we set? What is our intent of the public to put in to actually jar the designers to make sure that the thing comes through? So I'll now take a back seat and hopefully listen to a whole lot of good intent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, there's a couple of things that um, what you shared brought up, and I'm gonna there are a couple of things that I did tee up for for the discussion going forward. There's some resources that that we have that I'm gonna cover. Uh, yeah, Maureen.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to say, well, first of all, thanks for all your work, Dave.
Mm.
That was great. And oh man, that Southbridge vote being a tie. Oh,
Too bad. We had a supporter who
I
couldn't make
couldn't
it.
believe it.
We had the fifth vote in the can, but that person didn't show up.
Uh,
So it would have been a victory, but
yeah.
in some ways, a tie vote represents something very important, which is that, this has not been a clean sweep of the state. It's been a long, 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 difficult struggle, long before I ever met Byron Rushing and got involved in that. Uh,
Yeah.
so, a tie vote is symbolic of how tied up this has been for so long. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your optimism. I've been looking at the Minnesota flag, which has just recently been changed.
Mhm.
And I'd be interested to know how much this has been inspirational or if it's just coincidence or what, or if you're taking anything from Minnesota
Or
idea.
Miss or Mississippi, Jean-Luc.
Yeah, I think thank you for that question. I oth- Definitely what's happening in other states is helping to demonstrate momentum for the broader issue. However, it was so because we go back to 2021 when the special commission was passed. It actually was closer to the when the issue was addressed in Mississippi. Um, so that actually has its very long, protracted legislative process to get to where what the Mississippi flag was to where it is now. Um, couple of takeaways. So when that process started, I believe it was just I think it was like 2 months that the submissions the ideas for submission the submission for design ideas, like that process was opened. um and then during that 2 months, I believe there was sort of like 2,000 ideas or so that were generated. And I mean, it could be anything. There were flags that had like crawfish and beer cans and stuff like that. And there were all kinds of ways in which people were like just being playful with the idea. This is a very serious issue, of course, but when you actually kind of just imagine, kind of think about whatever it could be, it could be anything. And that's what helped create the volume of responses for the design commission to then say, okay, here's what, some of these are really fun, and then others are like, yeah, this is something that we could perhaps work with. So what we want to do is like especially in this final push for design ideas, we want to make sure that people understand how open the process is, how they can just dream up, anything and send it in, because we want to make sure that volume that's generated helps the commission understand. It's like presenting your testimony for the legislature. If we have a high volume, we understand that people are active in the process and really want that change, no matter what their design ideas are. Like, we just want to make sure like the volume is there. Um, so yeah, so that's something that we're really, really looking for is Mississippi. But as more states like Minnesota take on this issue, it makes it more urgent for Massachusetts to really face what the changes are that need to happen here.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Uh,
I think they got 5,000 submissions in Minnesota. You know,
Wow.
so that may put us to shame a little bit. But again, I want to look at the political moment that we're in and how uh, important it is for people to be involved on so many levels of local government, state government, and national and world politics right now. I don't expect people to have the kind of clear bandwidth to just focus on the end of this long 50-year, 60-year struggle that we're arriving at. If we get 1,000 submissions, I'll be thrilled. Um, and we'll see. We'll see in just a couple of days, but we still have time to push for more. As Jean-Luc said, the volume is going to be registered by the press, the media, and they're going to make something out of that.
Mhm. So yeah, and especially okay, let's take the last 48 hours to really ground, this moment and when when we're talking about international, um we're talking, about yesterday here in Boston, the Pride celebration is conflated with merged with the No Kings march, which was in response to this um birthday parade that was under the pretense of the 250th anniversary of the establishment of the U.S. Army. Um, and that moment, we can really see like the millions of people that had the national response, all of the different ways in which um all of the different ways in which that manifested. Oh my goodness, there was one Instagram video that I shared where people were using puppets that were like cats. And they had a wagon full of like stuffed mice, and the way that they spelled mice was like lowercase m and then the capital ICE.
Mm,
So
mm,
protesting
mhm,
protesting the ice the ice overreach, but doing so in a way that's like, that people are using humor to respond to the moment. There's all kinds of different ways in which people articulate the change that they want, and that's counter to this uh overall like perpetuation of colonialism that is really impacting what's going on internationally. Talking about what's going on in the Middle East, but also like the aspirations of annexing Canada as the 51st state, or somehow annexing Greenland. So, there's all of these different things that are going, and as we are going into from 2025 to 2026, really thinking about this experiment of the United States, and in other ways like an occupying government on indigenous lands, but really thinking about like, okay, that's that last 250 years. Now we want to have something kind together that that honors the rights of indigenous peoples, that meets the obligations, all of that. How can we build that consciousness into the conversations and the events and all the ways that we're going to recognize this anniversary next year? And so it very much plays, this is a very this is a very local issue to Massachusetts in terms of the symbols, but how we actually like kind of broadcast out to this is the state that we want, and this is the state that we're going to be building together. So
mhm.
that's the importance of the symbols themselves. And I wanted to go back. So let me make sure I have the tab open here. Great. Um, So one point of feedback for the sketch that Alan shared. The one thing that I think is important for myself, um being, being part of this community, like being Indigenous in Massachusetts, um, and confronting the idea of the state seal is that we really want to make sure that if we are putting human beings on the seal, that we have very specific identities that are attached to those people, and speaking to very specific histories, because we don't want to. I think what's important for me is that my communities are not represented by composites as the current Sila motto is. It's not some imaginary figure that we're dealing with. And so that's why I kind of pull up this page from the Museum of Fine Art in Boston. These are two statues that are currently flanking the entrance of the museum. And it's in somewhat in a response to the Dolan statue that was out there on the in the front of the in front of the museum. But these statues were sculpted by a Mohawk artist by the name of Alan Mickelson. And Alan identified two people that were knowledge keepers. So we have people, and these are actually contemporaries. These aren't historical figures. So we know they are, and they are living. So we know what they look like. We can actually talk with the people and everything. But this really kind of draws attention to, number one, contemporary Native people, but number two, um, all of the knowledge that we embody, especially when we come to, institutions like the Museum of Fine Art that, so, some of my earlier interactions with them was like really trying to find, okay, well, where is the native section, here at MFA? And coming to find, after a couple of times, it's like, oh, you have to go down to the basement. And there's this history of kind of indigenous erasure that happened. At the MFA in terms of like the artisan work that came from local communities. So to have these figures being contemporary, number one, very important. Number two, the fact that these are actual people, not composites. Like we want to make sure, and whether they're contemporary, whether they're historical, we want to make sure that there's some sort of specific um, history that's attached. Of course, when we're doing historical renderings, like there has to be, there is some artistic license that's there, but they have to kind of be recognizable and not necessarily completely a composite. So just kind of like if we are going the route of including human figures on the seal. Um, so there's that. I want to also I'm gonna go ahead and switch out.
Can I say one thing while you're switching?
Yeah.
You raised the issue about the hearing that we held, and I know we need to talk about another one shortly, where one of the representatives during the Indigenous Peoples Day hearing kept asking about the flag and seal. If we remove the Indigenous figure, would we be erasing Indigenous history or not honoring Indigenous history? That was Representative Colleen Gary
Yes.
Drackett. Um, and I thought Joe Comerford answered her very well. There is a discussion going on about that among the indigenous leaders from the first commission and now on the current commission, a very healthy discussion about whether indigeneity should be represented by a human figure on the seal. And I very much hope that discussion is allowed the space and honor and respect that it deserves to be continued and resolved. But there are many other ways to represent the same important connection with indigeneity, I think. Uh, you know, and it needn't only be by a historical figure or a modern figure. there's so much else that we could look to in Massachusetts, such as the shape of Mount Greylock, the physical feature of a mountain, the highest point in the state, named after an indigenous leader never defeated in battle by the colonists. The wild
Hmm.
turkey itself, the state bird, the
Mhm.
wild turkey itself, the white pine, chickadee. There are many other things that could represent indigeneity as well. I just wanted to throw that in, Jean-Luc. I'm sorry I
Hmm.
interrupted.
No, no, no. Thank you for keeping this conversational. I'm gonna
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to I'm gonna
Hmm.
go to Firefox first again. Of course, when we're talking about like in perceived indigenous erasure, thinking about the issue of Land O'Lakes, and how so there was the figure before, and again, the issue being, for me, like, what is the specific history that we're speaking to, and then the redesign of the box. um it has, the figure is no longer there, but the backdrop is there. And so a lot, some of the criticism of this change came about where it's like, okay, well, this is the most, American solution is like, we'll just remove the Indian and keep the land. And yeah, that's I would say that's a valid take on it, but you know there there definitely, what I'm trying to make sure that people
Mhm.
understand is that, um not um not thinking about the composite, not thinking about like our own individual ideas of what Native history is, but making sure that we're speaking to very specific history, and that could come about, from that especially comes about from like the knowledge of the local tribes themselves.
Mhm.
Um, I'm gonna go up back. I'm gonna go here to I think I have the design here, the design document here. So. Uh, back, and I'm gonna make sure that I have the right window open. Can people see? Let's see, not that one. Going to go to it's this one here, not the timeline one. Oh goodness. There we are. There we are. Okay. So this is a document close to the time that the around the end of 2020, that fall semester, North American Indian Center Boston, we had outreach from the Lesley University Community Design Studio. And through that interaction, we had a set of about um, six design documents called hoist reports. And these cover very specifically like vexillology. So we had a list of folks that joined the process. We had legislative partners like Senator Jason Lewis, of course, Raquel and myself from NACOB, Mass Humanities. Brian Boyles was part of some of these sessions. And then thinking about, we brought in folks from Mississippi, from the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, Humanities Council, and then Alan mentioned previously NOXA, the North American Vexillological Association. So we had Ted Kay, specifically. I remember him being on a couple of sessions that I was on. So really kind of thinking, we have this 12-page document, but kind of thinking about when we're talking about vexillology, best design practices. Um, and one of the things that we really kind of thought about in terms of, let's see, this is the Mississippi version of the process. Let me kind of park here on New Zealand. So thinking about when we're doing flag design, one thing that Ted, in his sessions really imparted that stuck with me in terms of a design principle is that you want to be able to design a flag, that they actually ask their students to do so, at a 1 inch dimension, because when we're actually seeing flags in public, regardless of like how big the canvas is, you really only have like the primary bands of color, some prominent design, something that can be seen like very far away. Now we can kind of see, like, we can actually, if we're familiar with what the Massachusetts flag looks like, and especially like what the seal looks like, and for all of us that are dealing with this issue, I think that's very top of mind. Um, Informal experiment is to go, when we're going out to the grocery store or whatever, and actually kind of thinking, finding people that aren't really steeped in, all of this design debate. Do you know what the seal and motto look like? Do you know what the flag looks like? Can you actually describe it? I think that there are still people that, don't really, can't really think of that top of mind. Um, this is something that's very urgent, but it speaks to the actual sort of design of the flag itself, the details that encode colonial violence are not that, we can't really see the detail from very far away. If you work with the issue, you know that very clearly what's there. But if you don't work with the issue, it's very hard to see from very far away. So thinking about ways in which we can have a flag that is identifiable, that has some design elements that aren't really like a lot of detail. Um, Keep it simple. Use meaningful symbolism. Use 2 or 3 basic colors. Do not use seals or lettering. So this is, we can actually have the seal, and it could be something as detailed as what was previously shared, or what we currently have. Um, but the seal on the state flag itself, it doesn't have to be there, and maybe it shouldn't be there. Um, so maybe there's a way in which we can kind of think about the flag as something that is separate. It's evocative, but it's actually very distilled and has that meaningful symbolism. Um, and then be distinctive, or related. Avoid duplicating other flags, but use similarities to show connections. So thinking about the history, thinking about, indigenous peoples, all the different communities that are coming together. How do we bring that together in a flag that doesn't have like a lot of clashing um, colors and images and things like this, but something that everybody can relate to. So those are the 5 basic principles of flag design that Ted and Noxa were bringing to this. Also, just kind of thinking about, we through this class we were able to kind of show, some consideration, not just of like state flags and everything, but also we were thinking about flags of indigenous nations. So you can see that there's a lot that's here in terms of state government. I'm going to go ahead and switch to another document here. Um, sorry. Make sure I have it open. Native flags. Yes, here we go. So here we did sort of that same sort of survey, but really wanted to bring when we're thinking about indigeneity, when we're thinking about how Native people represent themselves, really kind of thinking about Native flags and symbols and how folks have identified themselves. You can see here some of the seals of the tribes of Massachusetts. So we have the Wampanoag tribe of Quinagayhead that has this design of Moshop, who's the giant that had formed a lot of the land. We see the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe that has different words here in Wampanoag. So we're not married to Latin. We can actually have we could probably have like indigenous languages incorporated into the design. Um, the Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapog, which is uh let's not say like a an adaptation, but like this is sort of a reclamation of the image that's on the state seal. So this is something that comes from indigenous peoples. And on. You can see like something that's a little bit more symbolic, such as Nipmuc Nation here. Lots of different ways in which indigenous peoples here within the state are representing themselves. And then we have a lot of the sort of the design vernacular of tribes throughout New England and the Northeast. So many different things that were a part of this survey that we were doing with NOXA and the Leslie University Community Design Studio. Um, so that is flag design, five basic principles. Again, keeping it simple. Um, Thinking about what are the colors and how can we be relatable. This was a lot of the takeaway that was a part of this process. I'm gonna do one more because I think it was really important. There's the history of the seal. That's also a part of the design documents that came out of Leslie University. There was the Mississippi timeline. Um, but the one thing that we wanted to really kind of hone in on was this sixth document here, which focuses on intergovernance and what does it mean for Massachusetts to have improved relations with indigenous peoples. And so we really kind of like went through this process of bringing in um, historical research, but then thinking about the views of contemporary indigenous peoples here within the Commonwealth, and thinking about um, what are the takeaways from this history, working in between governments, and thinking about the ways in which indigenous governance functions, and what are some ways in which we can actually improve upon governance by learning from each other. Um, And we can see like the different municipal seals here. Um this one from Nahant, Mattapoisett, Plymouth. I want to make sure I don't skip over Andover, Brockton. But you can see there's many different seals that are here that have the different histories, have that kind of point of contact um, memorialized within the seals. So there's definitely ways in which very specific history is spoken to. So when we're thinking about updates to the seals and thinking about that very specific history, w- how can we reflect and how can we highlight moments in which um over the past 400 years there are perhaps moments um where the relationship was not completely extractive. There were perhaps moments in which we want to actually kind of reflect and draw attention to this is where um, intergovernance really functioned well between the Commonwealth and indigenous peoples. So kind of thinking about like what can we do within historical research to draw attention to those moments. So we don't want to necessarily get into the Land O'Lakes trap where we're removing the native person and only keeping the land and kind of performing extraction. But we want to make sure that folks understand what the need is. Believe this is this quote here coming from Jonathan James Perry. It's completely absurd to not think of Native history as U.S. history, and to not think of Native culture and nations as participatory in every aspect of the story that makes the states and the country, including the government itself. And he also says down here, we should not have to fight to replace an image of bigotry. So, that is the current need for the change itself. But on the other, well, not so much a but. The yes and of it is that as we are reflecting on what the government of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is, understanding how Native peoples have been participatory in every aspect of the story. So there are perhaps really good examples of how Native people have been participatory, and that might be a way in which we can um, have Native representation within the seal, within the motto, within the flag. So just kind of bringing in some of these voices. Um, David, I don't know if I've ever shared this. Is there a way that we could perhaps, if I could send you the PDFs here, is there a way that you could host this on Change the Mass Flag?
Why not? Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to make sure that people have um I don't want this to just be like scanning through documents, within the time that we have here together.
Mhm.
And then that's the only time that people will be able to kind of like see these. I want to make sure that um
Mhm.
they go forward because we wanted ideally what we wanted to do was make sure that they were part of the public record
Mhm.
of the Seal and Motto Special Commission. But failing that, there are other ways that we can make these documents available to the public.
Did the hoist reports make it into the final report of the
I
first special commission? Alan
It's
says
something
no.
I never really got clarity.
Yeah.
As you saw, I could probably go double back with Brian Boyles. So to be confirmed whether they're in there or not. But
Okay.
that they are part of what NACOB is holding on to. I don't think like any of the partners would necessarily have uh sort of hesitations about like, oh my goodness, don't put that up there. That it was a really thoughtful process, and it really included subject matter experts um, that was really really well thought through, and I think it would be really good to have this information out there, especially as we're doing the last final days of push for design ideas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm just aware that it's a little past 6, and we want to talk about the bill that has a hearing on Tuesday too. So I'm
Cor
only, I could talk about the flag and the seal and the motto all night, but
yes.
maybe others are also interested in that bill. I certainly am, and what we need to do.
Yes, yes. I also so the website for the legislature, I don't know if everybody's familiar with malegislature.gov. Um, but this session specifically, um, there is this log on feature here. I've been able to, so if I log out and then go into this tab, my legislature. Um, for folks that you can go through a formal registration process here, where you do register with your email, make a password, confirm that you're not a robot, and then go forward like that. I kind of did the Google button here. So, um, so this is how I sign in to the legislature. Um, and then from there, with the oh goodness, let me make sure that I can that I can do that. Huh. Okay. Interesting.
Hmm.
Um, Either way, what is ideally supposed to happen is that once you have your My Legislature account set up, whether you register for it fully or not, then you can go into search a legislature search bar here, and I can type in ban native mascots, and here I have a couple of search results here. This one, Bill S 312, is the Senate version of this. For this page, we can see who all of the petitioners are and everything. Um, but if I click on this star icon here by the bill, I can sign up. That's how I register for this bill to have like any alerts. And what I've done also is star the Senate bill here, and then if I do ban native mascot skin, I can. Oh, I misspelled mascots. Sorry. And then I go into the House bill, make sure that this is the 194th, the current session, star that. And then that gives me all of the alerts for any action that's taken. Um, so right now there is the Joint Committee on Education. We can see that Tuesday at 1 p.m. In B2 in the State House, and this gives me the actual directions here. So I can come in from the Ashburton Plaza, pass through security, and then go to the hearing room that's on the left once I get past security. So there, all the directions for this maze of a state house that we have, all of that's there. But I'm going to go to the hearing here, and we can see all of the bills that are going to be heard during this hearing. What has been happening? So there's dozens and dozens of bills here that are going to be heard on Tuesday. What has been happening at the State House is that if there are bills that have very few responses, then they'll go ahead and schedule those bills for earlier in the session, and then later in the hearing, that's when they'll have bills that have a lot more testimony that are more popular. And I've been in a couple of joint committees, one on the administration and oversight, the other one is around the environment. So, those two kind of functioned in the same ways of having the lesser testimonies go first. So, uh, right now, until noon tomorrow, there is a link for a form that will, and maybe it's, there it is. So forms.office.com. This is the joint committee that'll happen on joint committee on education that'll happen on 6/17. I can fill out my name, my organization if I represent one. Of course, I'm Jean-Luc Perrite, North American Indian Center in Boston. My email, my home address, my phone number. If I have any accommodations to testify, um, and then in person or virtually. So uh, for folks, especially the folks that are not able to get to the State House, I know that we have kind of a statewide audience here. If you're not able to get to the State House 1 p.m. on Tuesday, absolutely go ahead before noon tomorrow. If you wish to testify for banning native mascots, um, go ahead and click that virtual, and this will be the way in which you're able to get into the queue. Virtually, especially, you're going to have to get this form in before noon tomorrow. Um, and then there is, if you have yourself or if you have a group of folks, especially if you have a group of organizations that are represented, you can form a panel, and then you pick out the bills that you're going to be testifying on. Let me see, make sure like whether this is radial or not. There is I see that the mascots bill here. Let me just make sure. Mascots. Yes, it's both bills. And then just say whether you support or oppose. And then if you have any other bills that you're interested in, you can say yes. But basically send the form in. And the goal for folks is to get this form in before noon tomorrow, noon on the 16th. um, you were still able to provide testimony. There is an in-person sign-up sheet that's available when the doors open at B2. But this will be the preferred way for you to register to testify. So we go to MA Indigenous Agenda here / Native Mascots. We can have a couple of talking points here in terms of harm to Native students. So thinking about the academic research that is available, we have within the Mascots Coalition, we have Laurel Davis Delano, who is goodness uh, social sciences, sociology professor, but has written with Native academics like Professor Gon, Professor Joe Gon, on the impacts to mental health that Native mascots have on Native peoples. Then thinking about the harm to non-native students. Long-term exposure to native mascots generates more support for these mascots, and those who support native mascots are less supportive of Native Americans. We have you know, we have this debate about how native mascots as an issue, like it grounds very specific local cultures that may say, well, we are honoring native peoples, but the culture is more so around holding on to that image, and then thinking about, well, are you really supportive of Native people? Do you understand the land that you're on? Do you understand the history of that land? Do you understand the obligations that your government has to Native people? Or is it really just boiled down to this caricature? um, Thinking about how this is a statewide issue, even though we do all of these issues we fought town to town on, we want to make sure that people understand that this is a civil rights issue. So, despite what the progress has been, and I will say that, prior to 2020, and specifically the murder of George Floyd and the renewed energy and Black Lives Matter, we had nearly 40 schools that have native mascots. Um, so but since the 2020, we've gone down to a couple dozen, but it's still there. It's still a statewide issue, and um, in the last since Trump was elected president, he's actually thrown support behind native mascots, especially one in Long Island, New York, because he wanted to support the local community by upholding this native mascot. So plenty of talking points here, and plenty of resources here that you can pull from to actually say, well, this is what these tribes are saying. So when you actually formulate your own testimony, you have 2 minutes if you want to present testimony either in person or virtually. Beyond the 2 minutes, you can write your own research paper and send that in as written testimony. But we want to make sure that people understand 2 minutes for in-person testimony. Couple of things. We want to make sure that we center Native voices in this testimony. So that's to say that we are front loading as much as we can native peoples, and then we want to make sure that everyone understands that beyond having native peoples front loaded and prioritized, that a volume of folks talking about this, especially students who are directly impacted by this issue, whether they are native or not, we want to make sure that that testimony is heard on the day. So, we want to make sure that that testimony is prioritized from Indigenous peoples, but everybody should understand that we're not being exclusive to Indigenous peoples when it comes to the in-person hearing. Everybody's able to testify. Um, so that form from the hearing page, and you can go through beyond today, beyond this week. We've already heard the testimony for Indigenous Peoples Day. I believe you can still submit your written testimony for this bill. Um, we also have a bill to protect Native American heritage, which ensures that when publicly funded entities, whether they receive federal funding or not, talking about public libraries, archives, if they move to deacquisition sacred objects, that they should follow what is in the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. The reason for this is that back in 2018, for example, the Medford Public Library moved to deacquisition sacred objects from the Pacific Northwest. And in doing so, they sent the objects to Skinner auctioneers in terms of to in towards the goal of fundraising for renovations for the public library. Um, so we want to avoid that type of situation. So that's the purpose for having an act to protect Native American heritage. And then we have two bills that are talking very specifically about what's going on in our public schools outside of the mascots issue, thinking about how we celebrate and teach Native American cultures and histories, how that's reflected in public school curriculum. One of the pain points when we're talking about how Native peoples are taught are presented in history. Um, and this is not something we're not. I don't want to like bash, Massachusetts, because this is something when I go home. So I'm from the Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana. When I go back home to Louisiana, my niece is going through her own public school curriculum and then bringing back worksheets on history um, that instruct the child to, okay, you're going to trace routes of ships, and then those routes of ships are going to be matched up with a name and a country and why they came to this continent. And it's very it's it there's no nuance, there's no discussion. It's like this is how my niece is learning about murderers and the enslavers and things like this. So we want to make sure like there's more deeper dimension and discussion and inclusion of Native American cultures and histories. And then finally, um, thinking about all of these like sociological impacts on Native students. What can we do in terms of like maybe perhaps a permanent commission level that actually talks about the education of American Indian and Alaska Natives of the Commonwealth. Like, what are those educational outcomes? How can we make sure that we have folks that are completing high school and having their mental health, especially when we have issues of high rates of suicide amongst our Native students. Like, how are we um, ensuring in a community-based way that the educational outcomes that we want to see for our students, how are those attended to? So that's the broader Massachusetts Indigenous legislative agenda. And you can click on each of these links that are on the landing pages on MA Indigenous Agenda. Those will take you to the current bills. You can subscribe to these bills if you have an account on malegislature.gov by clicking on the star. That'll let you know from the Commonwealth side that'll automatically generate once hearings um, are scheduled. So the only ones that have been scheduled so far are Indigenous Peoples Day and mascots. But as we go throughout the session, we're going to have more and more dates. So the way that you can keep track of that individually is by subscribing, by clicking on this star on each of the bills, and then you'll start to get emails from mass.gov. So lots of information that we covered tonight. What I'm going to do, I'm going to have a last few minutes for folks that are still with us. If you have any closing thoughts or questions, anything that we covered tonight, that I could probably explain a little bit better, but many different ways in which we can be active in this process. So anybody that has any final thoughts, let me know. If not, what we'll do, I'm going to go ahead and once we close this, I'll have a cloud recording. I'll perhaps upload that to the United American Indians of New England YouTube account. Um, and then David, what I can do is I'll share with you that link so that you can alert folks to the recording, and then folks that weren't able to join us tonight can catch up in their own time, but perhaps respond to all of those action items that we discussed. Does that sound good, David? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, still muted.
No, no, very comprehensive. And as soon as you get me the link, I'll share it so people
Okay.
can watch it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time. We're gonna quickly get this link over to David and circulate it to more folks, and hopefully we can get some design ideas. And if you can, I hope to either see you in person at B2 in the State House on Tuesday, or virtually. So see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Cheerio for now.